Hey guys, today we'll be continuing with the Python video tutorials. We'll be going over a nested if and else example, and then if elif else. So here we'll just start. I'm using pycharm again today, as always. So I have my IDE open. We'll start here. So we'll just have a constant here. So A score points to 90. B score points to 80. C score points to 70. And D score points to 60. So here we'll say score points to cast it into the input function, and then we'll ask the user to enter your test score. And here we'll say if score is greater than or equal to A score. Then we'll say print your grade is an A. And here we'll have an else. So here we'll have an elf. It's an not an elf, not a Santa's helper, but we have so we have an else here. So we have an if, then an else here, and then an if. So it's a nested if inside the else. I believe, because I'm just kind of doing this on the fly here. So we'll just try this. So we have if else score is greater than or equal to B score. Then we'll have print statement. Your grade is a B. I believe here we'll have another else. Whoops, forgot that shift semicolon here. So we'll have else here. If score is greater than or equal to C score, print your grade is a C. Something's wrong with this here. What happened? If else, whoops, no, that's okay. So how are we gonna do this? If score is greater than or equal to A, else, then if, no, that's going to be these are all in one block like this. Okay. Okay, so we'll just so if we have an A score, if not, then it's gonna go here. Actually, no, there should be no else here. My apologies. Actually, there is. So here we have if score is greater than or equal to A score, print your grade is an A. else if score is greater than or equal to B score, print your grade as a B. Yeah, they do go down like this, but well, they all hit. So this one, if this one's false, this gets hit. If this is false, this won't get hit. Okay. So what's a better way to explain this here? I don't think this actually works here. So the best way to do this is, I think they're trying to show a nested. I'm working from a book. Nothing's indented here. It's just one line, one straight thing down. I don't know if that's a glitch from Kindle or, I don't think it is. So what's the best way? So if we want to get in here. Okay. Actually, I think this does work, because if we have an A score, this is going to get printed. If we don't, then this is going to get in. Then if we don't, this is okay. I think this might actually work. This is kind of just me on the fly changing it, or kind of like that. So we'll just go with that. Should work here. So we'll just continue with it. So we should have an else here. So if score is greater than or equal to C score, print your grade as a C. Then an else clause here. Yeah, that should be right. Else, was this supposed to? Yes, this was supposed to be like that, wasn't it? Else, yep. Then Python indentations can get a little tricky. You have to read it like a paragraph, kind of like scan it line by line kind of thing. So here we'll have if score is greater than or equal to, so else, above that we should have your grade as a C, then else, then below it if score is greater than or equal to D score. We'll print, what's wrong with this? Nope, sorry, that should be indented again. Yep, this should be like that. Okay, there we go. See what's happening here? It has to go into like a diagonal kind of way. If you just tilt your head to the left here, see it's like in a diagonal going down. So if we have else if score is greater than or equal to D score, then we'll have your grade. So you'll have a print statement. Your grade is a D. And here we'll have else. Print here. So otherwise, sorry you failed. So if we have okay, so if we have, if I just make this text smaller, that's why I don't like spaces, because I can't see everything that I want to. Okay, so what's going to happen here is we're going to enter a test score. If the score is greater than 90, because it has to be greater than this constant A score, so A score is set to 90. So if it's like 91, or if it's 90 or above, then it's going to hit this statement. The code's going to be done. None of these blocks are going to get hit, because it's either going to hit this block, or it's going to hit this block, because look, this else is connected to this if. So remember what I said before, the definition for an else is that it'll match its closest if in its indentation in Python. So it's in its alignment indentation. So if we look to its alignment indentation, the first matching if is this one in its indentation, not this one because it's below. So since this statement, so what the code execution is going to do is it's going to come to this line, it's going to check, okay, well, if score is greater than or equal to a score, if it's true, this line's going to get printed. That's it. So it's either going to print this line, it's either going to go here or there. It's like one of those choose your own storybooks. Like it's either going to be like, okay, well, this is page 1. It's going to read this page and only read this page. Or page 2, it's going to read this page. So in this case, if the score is greater than a score or equal to, greater than or equal to, which means like it can be 90 or above, but it can't be less than, then this line is going to get printed, since after this else block, which pretty much ends here, because you have to get into this if, you have to get into this else. To get into this else, you have to get into this if. To get into this if, you have to have been in this else to get into this else. Sorry, I didn't say that correctly. But you know what I mean. If you get into this else, then to get into this if, I mean you have to get into this else. So it's either going to be this if or this else then. So if you get to this else, so if you get to this if, then it's going to just print this and the code's going to be over, right? Because it's either going to be option 1 or option 2. So let's just say, let's pick some examples here. So let's pick a 91. I'll set a breakpoint here. That red dot thing's a breakpoint. I'll click the debugger. So step over A score, step over B score, step over C score, step over D score. As you can see in our variables down here, we have A score equals a 90. It's an int, and the same for all the rest. So now it's waiting for a score to be initialized. So it's saying, okay, well, score points to this input function, which is casted to an int, which is going to change the string to a number, because input only takes a string. So we'll enter a test score. So we'll enter, since we know the first one, I'll do something else like 81. I'll hit enter. So if score is greater than or equal to a score, so in this case our score is right there, 81. So is score greater than or equal to a score? So we can substitute the variables here. So is 81 greater than or equal to 90? That's false. Therefore, this whole block will get skipped to this else. Okay, since we're in this else now, where it automatically skips down to this if, because there's nothing here. Right. So now we have if score in this case is 81. So is score greater than or equal to B score? Well, what's B score? B score is 80. So is 80 greater than or equal to 81? That's true. So in that case, this if will get hit. So it'll go into this if clause to there when I hit step in. Then it'll print your grade as a B. So now I'll do 71. So I'm going to restart the code. I'll click the debug icon again. We'll start at the top, because every time you start the code, it starts at the top. In this case. So I'll step over. It's going to initialize these variables here at the top are constants. So as you can see, they printed them out here as well. So we'll enter a score. Whoops, I stepped into a built-in Python method, so that can happen. So we'll have to step out and restart that. Apologize. So that's what happens when you accidentally step into the wrong function. I stepped into that input function, I believe, so it took us to the whoever created Python, the programmer who developed the input function, he or she. It took us to their code that they wrote. That's built into like the Python library. So here we'll step over that, step over that, step over that, step over that, step over that. I think I stepped into it, that's why. So we'll enter a test score here. I should have put new lines there, because I think the input function doesn't end with a new line automatically, like the print function. So here I'll just enter 72, I'll hit enter. If score is greater than or equal to a score. So is our score, if I go back to the debugger, is 72 greater than or equal to 90? Well, it's not, because in a normal math equation, 72 is not greater than or equal to 90, so this statement's false. Therefore, it'll skip to this else when I hit step in. Now we're here because that else, it's either if or else, so now we hit the else, but there's nothing here, so it skipped into the to the if, because there's no condition with this else. So the first condition that will be with this else is this if. So that's why Python has elif. So here we'll have, excuse me. So what we're going to check now, this condition, this if condition. So we're going to say, okay, well, if score, which is 72, is that greater than or equal to b score, which is 80? Well, it's not. So this condition is going to be false. This statement will get skipped, or the whole if block. In this case, it's just this one line. It'll skip to here, so I'll hit step in, it'll skip to there. Same idea here, we skip this else because, sorry, we entered this else because there's no condition here, so the first condition is here. We stepped in there, so then now we'll say, okay, well, if score is greater than or equal to c score. So score is equal to 72, so now we're checking if 72 is greater than or equal to 70, because c score is 70. It is. So we'll step in, this block we'll execute, the code will finish, because in this case it was either this case or this case. So it was this case, this elf, sorry, not this elf. No, we're not at the North Pole, but this elf, sorry, I said it twice. Okay, so this else statement, sorry, this if statement will get hit, not this else, because it's either option 1 or option 2. It's either going to be this code block or this code block, because it's going to either be if or else, right? So because we said there's only two conditions, it's either true or false. So remember, true is 1, false is 0. So in this case it was true. So this block got hit, so if one block gets hit, the other one doesn't. So this whole rest of this blocking clause will get skipped. Basically this block. This clause containing this block will get skipped in this case. So we can basically, we'll just do the failing option. So we'll just show you guys, because you guys will realize if we put a 62, we'll get into this block, right? You guys will probably understand at this point now. If you haven't already understood before. If you're just learning, hopefully you know now. So we'll do the same thing with a fail to get into that last else, just to show. It's kind of like a default, so what that means is, just to explain for a sec, so if none of these conditions are true, if this if isn't true, so if this else is true and then this if isn't true, that means this else is true. If this if isn't true, then this else is true. If this if isn't true, then the last case that it can be, which is basically a default case, that means it has to hit this case if none of these cases above it get hit. In that case, it's always going to hit if none of these are going to be true. That means it's a default case, so it's always going to get hit. That means if none of these are true, this one always has to get hit. So if we do a number less than 60, then it's always going to come into this range. Basically this else clause will always get hit. This elf here, Santa's helper, will always get hit because it's just a default case. So if it's 60 or less, in this case, since we set the bounds to be 60 or above less for this to be hit, then it'll always get hit. If you do any negative number or anything, basically math terms, you might be able to even test strings here, but actually I don't think a string would work because these are integers, but you can test it out. Again, it could work with a string since it uses the ASCII character index, which has a number for each code. But anyways, if it's less than 60, we'll always get here. So I'll just show that here. So I'll just rerun the debugger here. Excuse me. So I'll run through those. Click the console here, that button. I'll put like 52. So if score is greater than or equal to a score, that'll be false. Because we have our score is equal to 52 if you look in the variables here at the bottom. So that'll get skipped. So since it's not greater than a score or equal to a score, that'll get skipped. Since it's the same, since it's not greater than or equal to p score, it'll get skipped. Since it's not greater than or equal to c score, that'll get skipped. Since it's not greater than or equal to the d score variable, it'll get skipped. Therefore, the else will always have to get hit in this case because we have no more code. It'll print out, sorry you failed, your grade is an E. So hopefully that makes sense. I'll probably just do one more here, or at least maybe, depending how long this one takes. Actually, we'll explain the if and elif idea here. So here we'll basically just remove this code. We could just set this to a static, not static. We just set this to a normal integer. Hard code it. I mean, we can just hard code something here. So hard code just means we can write a number. We can type a number and don't need to input something every time. So I'm gonna take. Should I take these out? Okay, so if score is greater than or equal to a score, print your grade is an A. So here we'll have an elif. So an elif basically means else if. Scores, that's what it means basically. So it's the same thing that we did before. It's just we can write it in one line and call it an elif instead of if or an else. So it's another keyword you can use in Python. So elif score is greater than or equal to b score. Print your grade is a B. These don't have to be indented that far now. So here we'll have else. We'll delete that here. So elif score is greater than or equal to C score. Print your grade is a C. And here we'll have else. So sorry, elif. So elif score is greater than or equal to a D score. Then we'll have print your grade is a D. And then the default else is still going to be there. Else print, sorry you failed, your grade is an E. So here we'll set score to, we know the first one, that'll be easy to understand because we just went over that. So if we enter 92 or sorry, if we enter a 90 or above, so let's just say we enter 91, it'll hit this if, of course, because that statement, so this is true in that case, so it's either if. So in this case, there's more than one option, but since we have it set up this way, so if score is greater than or equal to A score, then the code just automatically going to go into this block. None of these are going to get hit because it's either this one, in this case this one, this one, this one, or this one. So there's 5 options this time. Before each one was branched out into 2 sets of 2, either true or false or true or false. So as you can see, with conditionals you can get into code different ways. You can get into blocks of code using these, basically the two or three techniques we've gone over in the last few videos. So this is pretty much the last way to do it. There might be a go-to statement where you can just kind of jump into random code. We'll go over that if there is one. So here, let's do an example here. So we'll set it to 80. We'll set it to something in the middle. So we don't. Yeah. So we'll set it to. We have it set up so it goes down automatically. Obviously, all code in the world isn't going to work like this. This is just the way you can set it up. If you're new to coding, once you start creating blocks of code, you'll know how to like navigate into them with these conditionals. So here we'll just, for example, set it to 71. Then we'll just save and run this in the debugger again. Whoops, what happened there? Line 15. Whoops, sorry, there should be indented. I think that's what it wants. Okay, so don't worry about that. We'll just restart it. So just be careful. Make sure your conditionals are indented properly, or the Python interpreter won't understand. It's different than other languages. Other languages you can put them wherever you want in line. You just need to use the brackets, but in Python the interpreter wants you to indent everything. So here we'll just step over these. So our score is set to 71 here. You can see our score variable, it's an int and it's equal to 71. Or yeah, it's equal to 71 and points to 71. I remember 71 is stored at a memory location, and that memory location is referenced by the name score. So if score is greater than or equal to A score, which it's not because A score is a 90, then it'll skip to this elif. So it's going to say, basically this means else if in one statement. So they call it elif in Python. So elif score is greater than or equal to B score. So is 71 greater than or equal to B score? It is not, because B score is 80. So is 71 greater than or equal to 80? That's false. Therefore this elif and this block will get skipped to the next one. So they're always going to go down in order. So now it's going to check, okay, well elif score is greater than or equal to C score. Well, score is 71, C score is 70. So that's true. So therefore we stepped in because it's true. or you could have stepped in. If you didn't know, it would have been true there because it stepped in. Then here it'll print your grade as a C. That'll be the end of the code because, as you can see, finished with the exit code of 0. 0 means there's no error status. 1 means there's an error or some other random number. Basically 0 is always going to be there's no errors, no system error. 1 will be there's an error or any other number. There could be some other error code. So that's machine code, assembly language stuff. So just remember that 0 is basically no error. That's all you really need to know, and 1 is an error. Or anything other than 0 is an error code, in most cases. So as you can see, we got into this block of code here. This elif statement was hit, therefore this one was not hit, and this else was not hit. If we would have entered 61, we would have gone into this, not since we were here. This would have been false, we would have gone into here. That makes sense, right? And if we would have gotten 52 for our score, then all these this if would have gone skipped because it was false. Same thing with this elif. Same thing with this elif. Same thing with this elif would have been false because it was false. And then so the last default case was else. Otherwise, if all of these are false, then this one must be true. Another way to look at it, then we'll just print that, and that would basically would have happened. Sorry, I'm getting confused here what I was saying. Okay, so yeah, so pretty much that's it. Hopefully you guys understand. It's once you get the hang of it, it's not that hard. You'll be doing them like it's nothing, pretty much, once you get them. And you'll be able to nest them. You'll have nests like all the way out here sometimes, or like even more. If you're nesting a long 1,000 line isn't that long, but if you nest a 10,000 line code, you'll be nesting everywhere, so you'll get used to it. It can get tricky though if it's a big code like that, because you're in the middle and you're like, okay, well, this one's false, where do I go now? So you have to be careful because you can get lost in your own nested statements. So try not to nest too much if you don't have to, because it can make the code really complicated and slow it down, the execution time. So try to keep it as simple as possible. If you're writing a big app or something, you don't want to be stuck in the middle and wonder what happens next. Like, where do I go? If you're stuck, like if you find yourself, okay, if you do one thing, well, the rest is gonna not work, or you're gonna get lost. Getting lost is a problem too, because if you're so far in statements and one's false, then you're like, okay, well, where do I go? Or if one's true, you'll see that, especially in data structures. You'll get stuck. So just be careful. Or even in like normal apps, you can get stuck. So just be careful. If you're interested, I have lots of that in the previous tutorials, mostly in Java, some in C, not as much, but check them all out. But I'll be doing the Android series. I will be promising to do the Android series, even if it's just slowly at a time. But there's some good examples of that in app design, where it gets confusing. So just check that out. It's always almost the same in every language, so I recommend just checking it out. Anyway, so we're just gonna end it here. I hope you guys understood. If you guys liked the video, you can give me a thumbs up. And you can subscribe to the channel if you want to support the channel. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Take care.